In the year 2000, the singer-songwriter Andre Lauren Benjamin, better known as kind of Andre 3000, wrote a song "Heya" for his band Outkast. That song was recorded in December 2002 at Staconia Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. And the song was very unusual in that it incorporated many elements from many different genres, such as funk and rock. There were many people within the music industry who were enamored with this song, and they had a belief that this song would become huge. There were, in fact, a group of experts in artificial intelligence from Spain who created a computer model which successfully predicted how big a song would become, and that model basically predicted that the Heya song was destined for becoming the song of the century. So a lot of resources, both kind of time and financial resources, were invested into producing this song, and the hope was that this song would in fact become a large commercial success. When the song was finally released, the initial results were lackluster at best. Many people who were kind of asked about their reaction to the song said that they hated the song. And so the many people that were involved in kind of the production and promotion of this song were very dismayed at the initial reaction, and they were trying to figure out what the deal was. And then after waiting for some time with very kind of little success and very little traction, they decided to adopt a bit of a different strategy. What they did was they took this song Heya, and when playing it on the radio, they instructed radio stations to basically sandwich the song between very familiar songs, like at this time songs by people like Christina Aguilera and Celine Dion. And so every time the song played, it was always preceded by and followed by very familiar songs. And so after having done that, they basically released that idea out into kind of the ocean, and they wanted to see what the reaction was. And within a couple of weeks, popularity for Heya started to pick up dramatically. Within months, the song became huge. It became a major hit. It kind of attained #1 status. And the song eventually won several awards. And so despite all of these kind of early barriers and despite all of the initial dismay, things eventually did pay off in a huge way. And so why are we telling this story, and what does all of this have to do with our topic of kind of immigration and jobs in Canada? The reason why we're telling this story is because, in a sense, Canadian employers and kind of their relationship with respect to international employees is a bit similar to the relationship between the song Heya and the initial kind of listeners to that song. It's similar in that Canadian employers are not really familiar with international candidates. They're not familiar with the schools that they went to. They're often not familiar with the companies that they worked for. And this is very similar to the initial listeners of Heya, who weren't familiar with a completely new song that incorporated so many novel elements and was presented in a way that's very different than anything that kind of preceded Heya. And so the lesson that we can draw from the experience with Heya is transferable to the immigration and jobs in Canada context. The lesson to be gleaned from that experience is that in order to make people feel comfortable and in order to succeed within different contexts, you have to present something that people are familiar with, that they can relate to, that they can understand. And so because Canadian employers are often not familiar with all of these various things, such as schools, work experience, companies, those kinds of things, in order to increase the likelihood that a Canadian employer will be interested in you and will talk to you, interview you, and hopefully hire you, you have to give them at least a few things that they can kind of wrap their heads around, something that they're familiar with, something that they can relate to and understand. And so the thing to do in order to accomplish that is to do some legwork initially and to really kind of get familiar with how things operate in Canada within your particular industry. So if you work as let's say a finance professional, then figure out what the terminology is, what the kind of rules and norms are in the finance industry in Canada. And then once you have all of those different things in your toolbox in terms of familiarity with the terminology and those kinds of things, incorporate those elements in your job application, incorporate those elements into your interview with these employers, give them what they're familiar with, what they can understand and relate to. If you do that, then you're substantially increasing the likelihood that they are going to kind of empathize with you, that they're going to understand you, that they're going to be able to be impressed by what it is that you're telling them. That being said, you shouldn't completely disregard your unique elements, the unique elements that kind of constitute your education, your experience, your background. An effective approach is to basically start out with things that the employer is familiar with, whether in the preparation of your CV, your job application, or your job interview. And then once you put them into a state of ease and familiarity, then you can kind of spring upon them things that are unique. The bottom line then, going back to our initial story, is that before you become kind of the superstar outcast of employees, you need to put into the mix a bit of Celine Dion. And while it takes a bit of effort and time to figure out how things work within your industry in Canada, it's worthwhile to do so. And we say that because several of our members who have gotten jobs in Canada adopted that very same approach. So we hope you found this advice useful, and you may think about incorporating it into your job application when you're applying for jobs in Canada. If you're interested in any further information, we encourage you to visit Uniivaa.com.